Okay, Alexander, we are live. Let me just. Well, first of all, how are you? How are you doing this Saturday morning?
I'm doing very
As,
well.
as I
Personally,
check the stream, how are you doing?
I'm doing perfectly well. I'm doing very well, actually. Obviously, exciting events going on in Russia, which we will have to talk about. Exciting is, I think, understatement. But anyway, but other than that, I'm doing extremely well, and obviously, looking after things, and was looking forward to enjoying a nice, quiet Saturday. But it doesn't look as if this is going to come. But there it is.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. Some interesting news. Well, everyone was talking
Mm,
about a second front. Is it going to be
yeah,
Moldova? Is it going to be
yeah,
Georgia?
yeah,
Looks like the second
yeah,
front is
yeah,
is happening somewhere in on the road from Rostov to Voronezh or God
yeah,
knows where. But
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I don't want to make this out to be this huge coup that everyone
No,
is talking about.
no.
But we'll discuss it for about 20 minutes. We'll go for 20 minutes. We'll do a hard stop.
Mm,
Uh, we have a few questions. We'll try to answer questions, but
yeah,
let's just
yeah.
dissect what's
Yes,
happening here,
yes.
Alexander. A quick hello to everyone that's watching us on all the platforms, and a quick hello and thank you to everyone on Locals, Odyssey, Rumble, BitChute, Telegram, where else? YouTube, Rockfin, and thank you to our moderators.
Mm,
Hello, Sanjeva. I hope you are doing very well today. It's good to see you here. And thank you to everyone that sent us questions, comments before the show. Alexander, I'm just going to give you a couple of very quick takes. Thank you, Dana, for that super chat. Thank you guys for all your insightful comment.
mm,
Dan Walda, thank you for all your insightful commentary. Thank you, Dan, for
mm,
that. Um, look, this is not a coup, in my opinion.
no,
It's a mutiny. Putin gave a speech. He
mm,
said he's treason. Whatever relationship Putin had with Prigozhin, if they were friends or not friends, whatever it is, Putin has no choice.
no,
He has to deal with this, and he's going to have to deal with this in a very severe manner. That's my take after hearing his speech. It looks like the Russian leadership is closing ranks around Putin. Obviously, he
mm,
has an 80% approval rating.
no,
Kadyrov has come out with a statement. He fully supports the government. He said this is a treacherous event. This is treason or
mm,
a stab in the back. I think Kadyrov
mm,
said. Maria Zaharova, she has called for unity in these
mm,
moments. Many other
yeah,
officials and governors of various regions, they're all supporting Putin. Uh, the what Prigozhin has done is uh,
mm,
is a gift to the collective West. And I think that's going to be the main takeaway of all of this. When all of this is said and done, this was a gift to the collective West. It's going to probably lead to the Zelensky regime getting more money and more weapons. I don't even know if they have to do anything now before the
yeah,
NATO meeting
yeah,
in July 11th.
mm,
They've already got their talking point. They got their distraction.
mm,
uh, this entire conflict from 2014 and even
yeah,
before that, this has always been about regime change in Russia. And with this action from Prigozhin, in my opinion, this has just now emboldened Newlands and Sullivans and Blinken and
mm,
von der Leyen's and all of them. They now have a sense that they are close to a regime change. There are fractures in the Russian military. There are fractures in the Russian government. We're going to hear stories like this now for the next 16 years.
mm,
We're going to get stories like this now. This
yeah.
is Ghost of Kiev times 1,000.
I, I mean, I completely agree. I completely agree with
These are my
everything
these
you
are my
said.
initial thoughts,
Yes,
Alexander. So,
yes.
what do you think about
Well,
everything?
I not only agree with that, I'm going to just quickly add that it's going to have a very bad effect on Russia's friends. I mean, the government in Beijing, the Politburo in Beijing, the government in India, the government in Turkey, all of these in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia, they're now going to be asking themselves, how stable is Russia? Can we really count on it? Can we really afford to make long-term deals with this country? Because it looks as if the situation there is much more unstable than we've been led to believe, and that Putin is not in full control. And that is why it is absolutely urgent for him, as soon as possible, and in a most decisive way, to bring this situation back under control. Now, I'm going to say a few things. First of all, I think we do need to make a point which we've made before many times on many programs. We got lots of pushback about this. This is not some kind of complicated psyop. This is not Prigozhin and Putin and the Russians playing four-dimensional chess in some way, trying to lure the Ukrainians in by suggesting that there is a weak point in some defense position or something of that kind. This is nothing like that. We have been saying pretty much from the outset that Prigozhin's relationship with the leaders of the Ministry of Defense has clearly turned rancid. We've also said that he has behaved throughout, going all the way back to February, in an incredibly insubordinate way, that no military system should ever tolerate a commander, because that's what Prigozhin has presented himself as, who says the kind of things about his commanding officers that Prigozhin has been saying. And undoubtedly, for months now, Prigozhin has been going off the rails. It's been a huge mistake by the Russian military leadership not to take steps to rein him in much sooner, in my opinion.
We said in a video, Alexander, 2 months ago, a month and a half. What did we say in a video? We got a lot of pushback. Sorry to interrupt you, but we got a lot of pushback where we said Russia, now that Artemovsk, Bakhmut, it's like a month ago, month and a half. Now that it's all been settled, they need to deal with Prigozhin
absolutely
in a calm and
absolutely
stable way, but just deal with it and move on to the next phase. We said that in many videos that we did.
Absolutely. And they failed to do that. And now we see the mess that we have. And what has clearly happened is that the Russian Defense Ministry is trying to has been trying to rein in Wagner, has been trying to get them to sign a contract with the Ministry of Defense, which would effectively have taken whatever control Prigozhin still has over Wagner from him. He absolutely categorically refused. The Russian Ministry of Defense pressed him. Putin apparently pressed him to agree, and instead he's mutinied. And this is exactly what he's done. He himself, up to this point, he's talking all the time, and he might say something different, but up to this point, he's not saying that he's going to overthrow Putin. He says that he's going to clear out the defense ministry. He wants to go after Shoigu, and he wants to go after Gerasimov. You made this point in your video, which we posted on Locals, that he's got some kind of personal beef with Shoigu, which has clearly become an all-consuming obsession with him. The two men clearly hate each other. The fact that Shoigu never publicly responds to anything that Prigozhin says about him, I suspect, by the way, has made Prigozhin even angrier. Anyway, he's now done this thing, and he's moved troops across the border, as he called it. By the way, that was a shocking thing for many Russians when he referred to the Donetsk border as if it was a state border. But he's moved such troops as he has, into Rostov. He's blockaded the headquarters there. The Russian military has now been given orders to stamp on what he has done, and Putin has now given a speech. And you're quite right in saying that the entire government, the entire political system is now rallying behind Putin. And so, incidentally, from what I can see, we're now starting to see evidence that shows the civilian population. There's been pictures now appearing of civilians actually shouting abuse and criticisms at Wagner fighters in Rostov. I've absolutely no doubt that the government will bring this thing under control. But that doesn't in any way take away from the damage that has been done. And I have to also say, at the end of this, I really do wonder whether Wagner can be allowed to continue to function at all. I would not be surprised myself if it was broken up and, subdivided into other units, because clearly this has been a problem. Now, I'm going to add one last point, which is that over the last few months, the British media has been relentlessly plugging the story that there was going to be a coup in Russia, that Prigozhin was going to lead it, that there was going to be that this is going to be the beginning of the end of Russia, that this is going to create a crisis there. And now we see all those articles in the British media they're starting to look prescient. And I have to say, one of the things that has really shocked people in Russia is that one of his comments yesterday, Prigozhin completely went over to the Western side about the war. He said that it wasn't true that Donbass was being bombed, that Donetsk was being bombed. It wasn't true that Ukraine was about to launch an attack to try to capture Donbass in February 2022. Allegedly, the entire war was the work of Shoigu because Shoigu wants to become a marshal. I mean, a crazy idea, by the way. But all of this, I have to say, I don't personally know or believe this, but there are already people saying in Russia that it's not a coincidence that this has happened in the way that it has. The offensive itself isn't going well. Prigozhin is telling absolutely bizarre stories about this. He says that Ukraine is on the gates of Tokmak, all kinds of things like that. He's making out that the Ukrainian offensive is going from strength to strength. There are people in Russia who are now saying that the West is actually behind this move, that they managed to get to Prigozhin in some kind of way, and that they've turned him against the government, against Putin, against the Russian Ministry of Defense. I don't know that that is the case. All I can say again is that there are people in Russia who are saying it. There's talk about a stab in the back and that kind of language, and Prigozhin is not going to survive this. I mean, that is absolutely clear to me.
Yeah, Putin has no choice. He's going to have to deal with this in a very severe way. I think the whole contract issue, if that is indeed the case, then for me it shows that Prigozhin, who's a very wealthy man, for him it's not about money. He's very wealthy. It shows to me that he probably manipulated these Wagner fighters so that he could, use the contract dispute, whatever that dispute is. We don't know the details of the contract. I don't know what the contract issues are with Wagner and them going into the Russian military, but whatever the issues are, that would mean that he manipulated the soldiers. He got them to be angry about this whole contract issue so that they can rebel with him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's exactly what.
Any way you look at this is bad for Prigozhin. This is really bad for him. Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, he has been. I mean, this is at least what the Russian authorities are saying, that he's manipulated the Wagner fighters. And of course, he released this video yesterday, which even I can see it doesn't show what he purports to say, but he claims that the Russian Defense Ministry launched a missile attack on Wagner fighters. The Russian Ministry of Defense immediately denied that. Even people like Igor Girkin, Aka Strelkov, who also does not like Shoigu, said that this video was nonsense. Rybar, which is this Russian collective of journalists, they did a breakdown of it. They said this video is nonsense. But clearly this is what he's been doing. He's been trying to get these fighters to come out to support him and to launch this attack, as I said, on the Ministry of Defense. Now, of course, it cannot succeed because unless he's prepared to use force, unless he's prepared to go out and start killing people, which in fairness to him, he hasn't yet done, how can he succeed in a mutiny when the rest of the military and civil society and all the others are not supporting him? So sooner or later, this will peter out. Sooner or later, the authorities will move in. As I said, the government is standing firm. If I have to say what this most reminds me of, by the way, in historical time, it was the attempt in the 1960s, in the early 1960s, by elements of the French military to launch a coup against de Gaulle in France, some kind of an uprising against de Gaulle. And again, it basically burnt itself out. And de Gaulle actually emerged strengthened out of that affair. But it's the same sort of crisis that Putin is facing now. And it'll be a great test of his leadership, how he deals with it, and how he reassures his allies in Delhi, in Beijing, in Ankara, in Cairo, in Brasilia, in all of these places, and also how he handles the inevitable fallback from the West. Note that all of this is happening even whilst the Ukrainian offensive continues, and all of this is, of course, also happening even whilst that Ukrainian offensive continues to go nowhere.
Yeah, and the great Robert Barnes, he says here, reminds me of Truman MacArthur, except Prigozhin wasn't a world-famous general in command of troops, and MacArthur didn't try to go home and occupy Jacksonville.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite true.
So, yeah, Robert's spot on there. So, I mean, where do we go from here? My take on this is this has done a tremendous amount of damage to Russia, to the Putin government.
Yes.
And from a narrative standpoint, the collective West is going to absolutely eat this.
Oh, they already are.
I mean, Duda has already come out with statements. I'm sure the Biden White House is ecstatic. I'm sure the Zelensky regime is ecstatic. I'm sure Nuland is jumping for joy.
Yes.
An own goal. What an F up on Prigozhin's part. And for me, I chalk this up to a man that that has a huge ego, went mad, has this huge grudge against Shoigu, and he wants the spotlight and the attention on him.
I think,
and he doesn't want to let go of Wagner. I mean, this is such a huge error on Prigozhin's part and on the Russian government's part, because
absolutely
they should have dealt with this issue months ago. When Artyomovsk wrapped up, they should have dealt with this, and they did it.
Yes.
And one final point, Alexander, Prigozhin has been saying a lot of crazy stuff over the past month. Crazy stuff.
Yes.
And no one's paying attention to it. And I think that bothered him a lot, and it pushed him to this.
I agree. I mean, one of the things which I think must have driven him absolutely haywire is that, of course, he was constantly saying that the Russian army is corrupt, demoralized, the soldiers won't fight. He was making it look as if the Ukraine was going to succeed in its offensive. And I think this is one of the things that has also probably alarmed him and may have helped to tip him over the edge, is that all those predictions that he made himself have turned out to be wrong. Anyway, look, we'll have to see what happens. I think at the moment, the Russian authorities are trying to avoid bloodshed. I mean, they're trying to avoid an out-and-out clash between their forces and Prigozhin's. But eventually, I mean, if this continues, they will have to take military action, and they'll have to try and arrest Prigozhin. And I suspect he'll be put on trial. And I suspect at some point within the next couple of days, this whole affair will have ended, and Prigozhin will be under arrest and in prison, assuming, of course, something worse doesn't happen to him. But in the meantime, as you absolutely rightly say, the political damage this has done has been tremendous and cannot be underestimated. Around the world, the West is already delighted. You correctly said the West is already delighted with this. They wanted regime change. They're getting regime change. And inevitably, as I said, this is leading to suspicions that they have had a hand in this. So that's what they're going to run with, that the government in Moscow is fragile, that it doesn't have the situation under control, and people in the rest of the world are now going to start to wonder whether that is true. So Putin has to deal with this firmly. He has to deal with this pretty fast as well, in my opinion. He made I thought, impressive address. By the way, just to say, his reference to 1917 was very interesting. What I think he was referring to mostly there was not the event that took place in November or October, depending which calendar you prefer, 1917, when Lenin and the Bolsheviks took over. What he was referring to were the events of February 1917, when the Tsar was maneuvered into abdicating. And of course, that happened following intrigues. We discussed those in our history series long-standing intrigues and people pulling the strings behind the scenes, trying to seize power, trying to gain control of Russia from the Tsar. And of course, what he did instead was it provoked a collapse. And I think that is the warning Putin is giving. He's saying, we've been there before. We mustn't allow it to happen again. We can't, at a moment when we are at war, afford this kind of division. And I think that is going to carry a lot of traction with the Russian population.
Yeah, this was a very dangerous action by Prigozhin, because you got to imagine that the minute this happened, whether the West was involved or not,
Yeah.
Let's say they weren't involved. Let's say this surprised them as much as it surprised us. Let's just assume that.
Yeah.
You got to imagine that when this went down, the U.S. embassy in Moscow just lit up, and whatever fifth column elements are around in Russia, you got to imagine that they started to contact whatever sources they have, whatever fifth column assets they had, and they just tried to sow chaos right away. I mean, I saw it from a media standpoint. I saw the posts that were coming out. Wagner shot down 3 helicopters, 3 planes. They're moving on Moscow. I mean, for the collective West, for the U.S. embassy in Russia, I'm sure that when this happened, they were just like, okay, this is our chance.
Yes,
we're close to a regime change here.
That's exactly right. And can I just say, I mean, Prigozhin is giving it to. One of the things about Prigozhin, one of the most, the things he seems to think, I have to say this, only about himself. He's consumed with his own grievances. He has shown no ability to see the broader picture or no interest in it. Now, that's, of course, assuming that he isn't in contact with the West. But assuming that he isn't, he is entirely wrapped up with himself and with his own ego. Now, Kadyrov's statement, if you actually read it carefully, makes exactly that point. He's contrasting, in effect, there Putin, who is calm, measured, objective, systematic, sees everything, takes everything into account. And of course, the comparison he's making, the contrast Kadyrov is making, is with Prigozhin, who is utterly consumed by himself and doesn't seem to have any understanding or perhaps even care that what he's doing could bring the whole, if it were to succeed, which of course it won't, could bring the whole structure crashing down on his own head. But if you go back to 1917, that was exactly how the liberals and people like that were behaving within the Russian government. They were so convinced that they would, that they would take over from the Tsar, that they just had no understanding of the implications, the long-term consequences of what they themselves were doing.
Yeah, okay. Alexander, we said we'll go for about 20 minutes. We're at about 23 minutes. Yeah. Well, we wanted to give this quick update. What else do you want to?
Well, I've pretty much run through everything I've personally wanted to say. If you want to give 5 minutes to questions,
let me go through some of the questions.
I have 5 minutes. 5 minutes, then.
Yeah. And we'll answer questions on a dedicated show.
Yes,
that we will do. But let's just go through these really quickly and see what we can knock out with regards to this mutiny. A coup that's not directed at the leader of the country, it's directed at the Minister of Defense. It's what a dumb, bonehead move from I mean, really dumb, really reckless, really dangerous. Irish Partisan says, are the current events in Russia similar to the French general's OAS coup against de Gaulle over Algeria?
Yes, that's the answer. I said that myself in the program.
All right. Rafiq says, kindly elaborate Putin's earlier speech reference to Anglo-Saxons' hubris trying to dominate Eurasia. McKinder and the now reference. Okay.
Well, I think that is such a huge topic that that would take a whole 5 minutes.
Let me try to get to some of the questions on Prigozhin, specifically on Prigozhin. Is Prigozhin going to go down as poor man's Stenko?
Razin was a Cossack leader who led a rebellion against the Tsar in the 17th century, and he was eventually defeated and executed. And Shostakovich did a very, very good cantata on the whole matter, by the way. Yes, you could say that, but I don't think that, I mean, Stenka Razin became a folk hero for some people. I don't think Prigozhin is.
Okay, who's supporting Prigozhin? He isn't military.
Nobody is. I mean, some people within the Wagner organization are, and I suspect not all of them, by the way, but no one else is. I mean, he's completely isolated.
Commander Crossfire, we are going to start seeing Wagner attacks in Russia in the place of the other Russian liberation armies. This is a disgrace.
Yes, it is a disgrace. I mean, Prigozhin has been behaving in a disgraceful way for a very, very long time. We got a lot of pushback when we were saying that before. Well, I don't think there's anybody going to argue with that now.
Yeah. Okay, I've been waiting and hoping for you guys to program. Thank you, Commander Crossfire.
Yeah.
I hear that Michael Khodorkovsky is behind Wagner.
Well, I have no information about that. I mean, these rumors do exist, but they're just rumors at the moment.
Prigozhin isn't in this alone.
Well, I don't believe that, because the question said the regular Russian military are involved. I see no evidence of that.
Is Prigozhin stable?
No, it's the answer. I mean, I've been saying that for a long time.
Ricardo says mercenaries are for hire.
Yeah, again, a lot of people are making that very same point. I mean, if he has been bought by NATO to launch a coup, then he's a complete idiot. I mean, that's all I can say.
Yeah, there were those articles that appeared. I think it was Wall Street Journal, which did say he was having communication with Ukraine officials. Remember those articles?
Absolutely, of course I remember them. People are bringing them up all over the place, and maybe he was. I mean, I'm not saying this hasn't happened, but if it was the case, then he's an even bigger idiot. Because I mean, even if he succeeds, the West will come after him. I mean, they're bound to.
Yeah, Prigozhin is having a Colonel Walter Kurtz moment. Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. I do count on you guys. Thank you very much for that. Elza, maybe this is face-off of Prigozhin was exchanged with Prigozhin Illusiony. Okay.
Well, there's a lot to say about that, actually, but for another time.
Yeah, for another time, yeah. Prigozhin is now officially a traitor. That is how he wants to go down in history, yes.
Yes. I mean, he's destroyed his reputation, regardless of what happens.
Yes.
I mean, his reputation is finished.
Yeah, and Wagner's finished.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I saw a meme, Alexander, this morning, a meme where it had Biden saying that he's going to give a few $1 billion in aid to Wagner. Yeah. I mean, that's now the memes that are coming out about this. Yeah. Rocky Look says, didn't Igor Girkin say about the war in Donbass, 2015, the advances of Ukraine army occurred after a mutiny of Cossacks to Ukraine?
I don't remember this, so I can't comment on that. But I mean, it might have been, but I mean, I don't remember this.
Putin needs to frame this as an attempted Western coup.
Yes, he has done. That's exactly what he's just done.
Yeah. Colonel Kurt's situation. Yes, very true. Prigozhin got PTSD.
I've said this. I've been saying this for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Let a new again. Okay. How do you communicate the enemy's plan to compromise you when communications can't be trusted? Go see them in person.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Kadyrov has already responded to this. If this is all an elaborate attempt to try and talk to Shoigu, then, I mean, all I could say is it's so overblown and so extreme that the damage it's done is even greater. And Prigozhin is even more bizarre than that would make Prigozhin even more bizarre and even more crazed than he is if you accept that this is a mutiny. All the facts about it point to this being a mutiny.
Yeah. Since the Russian army is doing so good countering the offensive, Prigozhin is jealous and wants screen time.
Correct. This is exactly what Alex was saying, and it's exactly true.
Exactly true. Breaking news: it's happening in Belarus as well.
I haven't seen that.
I haven't heard anything.
I haven't anything. Yeah.
Isn't this reason enough for Russia to go after decision-making centers in Ukraine?
Well, if they were involved, perhaps.
Huge amount of money found in Hotel Terezini.
I don't know anything about this.
I don't know anything about that, General Jane. What about bigger mobilization and martial law?
Might happen. More likely now, I'd have thought.
Good question. Does this remind you of the Turkish coup? Now, that was a real coup in Turkey.
That was a real coup.
That was a real coup.
This is not.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
went after Erdogan
Yes.
there. The only thing that makes this similar to a coup, Alexander, is just
Yes.
that it happened on a Friday.
Yes.
Usually coups
Yes.
happen on a
Yes.
Friday
Yes.
and they end on a Sunday, one way or another. That's the
Yes.
only thing.
Yes.
Watch the West criticize the punishment about to come with Putin as a dictator, being fascist. Well, Jason's person, okay. And thank you very much for that. Any update on Gonzalo? Where is he? I did
No.
a small update on a video a couple of days ago on the Chilean embassy. They're trying.
They're trying
to help. Yeah. Russia was dealing with it by removing Prigozhin as head of Wagner, probably learned it from Putin. PR bad, but ultimately not important.
I disagree. I think it is very important because sometimes PR is important and we should never overlook this.
Yeah. Thank you, Stefan. Prigozhin's ego aside, how are they funded?
Well, the money must have come from somewhere, and I've long suspected it came ultimately from the Russian Defense Ministry. And that's, I think, there's a lot to unpack with Wagner, and we're only at the start of this.
Yeah. A few more, Alexander, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
If the Russian people react like people did in Turkey and rise up against Wagner in the streets, they are, it seems.
They're already doing so, yes.
Yeah. The defense battalions formed in Syria in the 1980s outside the Ministry of Defense to deal with the Muslim Brotherhood. After the war, they went amok, and they had to chop them.
Yeah, that's just fine. But I mean, does Russia want to be, bracketed with Syria of the 1980s? I mean, that's the trouble.
All that diplomatic work, all that effort.
Yeah.
Estevan says, not sure who is taking more coke, Prigozhin or Zelensky. Thank you, Estevan, for that. Did anyone think it took a really long time for Wagner to take Bakhmut?
Well, we've discussed that. I'm not going to revisit the Battle of Bakhmut in this program.
Yeah. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes.
True.
Wagner head. Surovikin did talk about this as well, and supposedly Surovikin worked out the plan for Bakhmut, whether it took time or went according to plan. Prigozhin, real quick, Alexander, Prigozhin, he Bakhmut finished, and he was a hero.
Yeah.
He should have taken a 6-month break.
Absolutely.
Left as a hero, but he couldn't stop.
No.
What lands did Russia lose in 1917?
Poland, Finland, the Baltic states, what is now Moldova, areas in Belarus and Ukraine, substantial territories.
Jason says, is this what not disciplining a spoiled child like self-centered, egotistical, narcissistic, short-sighted? If you have children, you know these antics.
Absolutely.
Well said, Jason. Well said. A lorry full with money was found near his office.
Well, again, I haven't heard that. There'll be lots of stories like this. We'll find out.
There's going to be a cleanup in Russia Erdogan style.
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
Good point, AD. This man has a suicidal bug in his head. It's a disease where the victim tries to die by any means available. He's been begging to be put out of misery.
Oh, yeah.
Prigozhin said he will not obey.
I've just seen that. I didn't see how he could. And can I just say, I mean, it wasn't an order addressed to him anyway.
Very true. I don't think Putin didn't say Prigozhin. He said Wagner.
No, absolutely.
Speech. I mean, he mentioned Wagner, not Prigozhin. So Prigozhin is going nuts, or there's any manipulation from third parties going on here.
Well, we don't know. But as I said, there are lots of people in Russia who think that there is this.
And doesn't Wagner get munition from Defense Ministry?
Exactly. So how can they sustain a coup?
Yeah, exactly. For me, it was 100% for money. Tried to get the contract. For the soldiers, yes, I agree with you, Raphael.
Yeah.
For Prigozhin,
No.
he's got billions.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Stefan, thank you. Just a couple more and we're done. We'll wrap up. Thank you, Ivan, for that. One way to install Mizintsev.
Yes, Mizintsev, to put him in charge of Wagner in place of Prigozhin. It might even come to that if they decide to preserve Wagner, but I'm not sure they will.
Thank you, Stuff. Don't be worried. Everything will work out. PMC Wagner took control in all military facilities in Rostov, including the city's airfield. So, Mr. P, he might be flying somewhere.
Well, absolutely, yes. I mean, the point is, clearly, as I said, the military were ordered not to try to fight Prigozhin at that point. And I think the military doesn't want to. Putin doesn't want to. He doesn't want to appearance of a civil war in Russia at this time. But eventually it may come to that.
Yeah. Mercenaries don't work. Professional militaries don't use them. Wagner was always a big question, and it has been proved.
Well, so, exactly so.
JD, thank you for that. Kajan says, back. Prigozhin, West says, yeah, that would make us safe in the West. Very true. And could this be just another Maskirovska operation within Russia?
No, it's a short answer. I mean, listen to Putin's speech. I mean, that really ought to have put any illusions about this beyond any possible doubt.
Tests ours. Blessed is he who takes no offense at me. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, Russia will survive this. Prigozhin won't.
I agree.
And finally, and we'll wrap it up. Prigozhin thought he can be always tolerated in his tantrums by the Russian higher-ups.
Yes, and he was tolerated for far too long. And as somebody said, he behaved like a spoiled child, and he's now throwing a colossal tantrum, and he's breaking all the furniture and doing a lot of damage.
Doing a lot of damage, yeah. Any final thoughts, Alexander? We'll wrap it up. Thank you, everyone who came out for this live. We just wanted to do a short live to just kind of update everybody on our thoughts on what's going on. This story continues to unfold.
Absolutely. So lots going on. We'll see how it plays out over the next few hours and days. I mean, some people are saying it needs to be resolved by Monday. I wouldn't say Monday, but pretty soon. I mean, Putin cannot allow this thing to drag on. So far, interestingly, there doesn't seem to have been any effect on the soldiers on the front lines, and they seem to be going on doing their work as always.
Yeah, this has to be resolved by tomorrow. It would be my guess on this. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in on this Saturday, for taking time out of your weekend to watch this update. Alexander will have a full update on his channel. I have a video, Alexander, that I did very early in the morning before all of this started. Just gave my thoughts. So much has developed. I don't know if I'll publish it. Maybe I will, just so everyone can see my thoughts before Putin's speech and everything. Anyway, and I'll do a video as well today. So we'll have a lot of content going up on the channel. We also have a video that we did talking about the ZMPP before all of this happened.
Yes.
That'll go up on the Duran. So we'll put that up as well.
Yes.
Alexander, let's try to enjoy our weekend and keep an eye out on what is happening.
On what's going on. Exactly.
All right, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you to our moderators. Thank you, moderators, for everything that you do. Take care.
All right. Bye.